Let's jump right into this explainer, because what we're looking at today is how biology masters the absolute ultimate balancing act. Think about it for a second. Every single cell in your body, and honestly in every living thing on Earth, is essentially just a tiny bag of water and salt. But how on earth do these cells survive when the outside world is constantly trying to dehydrate them, crush them with salt, or just completely flood them with fresh water? Well, today we're exploring the extreme and, frankly, absolutely brilliant engineering solutions that nature has evolved to conquer water, salt, and ultimately, survival.
Picture this. Imagine living your entire life in a scorching, relentless desert without ever taking a single sip of liquid water. I mean, it sounds literally impossible, right? But the crazy thing is, every living cell faces some variation of this extreme, high-stakes challenge depending on where it lives. And the fundamental problem really just boils down to one thing. How do organisms maintain their internal fluid balance when the world around them is completely hostile?
So let's look at a marine creature like the brilliant pink blue-dorid nudibranch. It's got a relatively simple but highly effective strategy for living in the ocean. It acts as an osmoconformer. Basically, this means it doesn't fight the ocean. It just joins it. It naturally matches its internal water and salt concentrations to the surrounding seawater. The internal and external osmolarity are virtually identical. So it's exerting very little energy to control its internal solute profile. It's just sitting there in perfect, passive harmony with its environment.
But you know what happens when you can't just conform to your environment? That's where tonicity comes in. This is the ability of a surrounding solution to cause a cell to shrink or swell, and it is a deadly cellular tug-of-war. If a cell gets dropped into a hypertonic solution, meaning the water outside is just way too salty, water rushes out and the cell shrinks and shrivels up. On the flip side, in a hypotonic environment like fresh water, water rushes in so fast the cell can literally swell up and burst. So to avoid popping or shrinking into oblivion, animals have to actively fight back.
That brings us to Section 1, Animal Survival Hacks. Breaking the rules.
When conforming just isn't an option, animals have to force their environment to submit. Take the rugged marine iguana, for example. Unlike our pink sea slug, the iguana can't just match the ocean salt levels. Its terrestrial biology would absolutely shut down. So animals like this act as osmoregulators. When they swallow seawater, their internal osmolarity stays completely constant. How do they do it? Active transport. Their bodies are literally expending precious energy to forcefully pump incoming salt ions right back out. They maintain safe internal fluids despite swimming in an overwhelmingly salty sea.
And how about marine birds? They actually survive drinking straight seawater through this unbelievable mechanism. Right above their beaks, they have these dedicated primary osmoregulatory epithelia, their specialized nasal salt glands. Using that same active cellular transport, they continuously pump sodium and chloride ions out of their blood and into a central duct. The result of all this? These birds literally sneeze or cry out highly concentrated droplets of salt. They're desalinating ocean water right inside their own heads.
Now, sharks take a totally different, almost alien route. Instead of just pumping salt out, they hoard, well, something we usually consider toxic waste. Sharks pack their blood with dangerously high levels of urea, along with a stabilizing compound called TMAO. Together, these act as counteracting solutes. By holding on to this urea, the shark purposefully keeps its internal osmolarity just slightly higher than the surrounding ocean. Because of this clever biological trick, they don't lose water to the sea. In fact, water slowly diffuses into them, completely saving them the energy of constantly drinking and pumping.
All right, let's flip the script and dive into the exact opposite extreme with the kangaroo rat. If marine animals are drowning in salt, this little guy is starving for water. This tiny desert mammal has evolved to never need a single sip of liquid water in its entire life. The adaptations it uses to pull this off are just spectacular.
Let's break down their survival kit. First, the behavioral stuff. They chill out in cool burrows during the daytime so they don't lose water to the hot air. When they exhale, special nasal passages condense their respiratory moisture, meaning they don't even breathe out their precious water. But here's the kicker. Their water source is entirely metabolic. Just from digesting incredibly dry seeds, the oxidative phosphorylation in their cells generates enough actual water to survive. To hold on to it, they completely dehydrate their waste before it leaves the body, and their kidneys have an extra long structure called the loop of Henle to produce hyper-concentrated urine. It's pure efficiency.
Which leads us to Section 2, the toxic trade-off, managing nitrogen. You see, concentrating waste brings us to a really deadly dilemma. When animals break down proteins and amino acids for energy, they strip away amino groups, and this process produces ammonia. The problem? Ammonia is a highly toxic gas. It can easily cross cell membranes and literally poison the organism from the inside out. So just basic, everyday digestion suddenly becomes a high-stakes biochemical hazard.
Because of this, evolution basically forced animals to make a massive trade-off between energy and water conservation, depending entirely on where they live. You can see three distinct pathways emerging. The very same epithelia involved in balancing water, like gills or kidneys, are typically the ones handling this toxic nitrogen waste. And the specific form that nitrogen takes, that's entirely dictated by the animal's environment. Let's say you're a fish. Water is absolutely everywhere, right? So you can just let that highly toxic ammonia diffuse right out of your gills directly into the ocean. It requires massive amounts of water to safely dilute it, but almost zero energy to make. Cheap and easy. But terrestrial animals, we can't afford to just bleed out that much water. So mammals burn energy to convert ammonia into urea, which is moderately toxic but can be safely concentrated in water. Birds, reptiles, and insects take it even further. They convert ammonia into uric acid. You know, that stubborn white paste you find on your car windshield? Yep, that's practically insoluble in water, meaning they lose almost zero hydration making it.
But get this number, 15. That is the exact number of separate, enzyme-catalyzed reactions required just to create a single molecule of uric acid. It is a massive, ridiculously expensive energy cost. But for a bird flying miles through dry air or a reptile baking on a hot rock in the sun, sacrificing huge amounts of their food's energy just to save a few drops of water, well, that's a trade-off they absolutely have to make if they want to survive.
Let's bring this closer to home in Section 3, inside the ultimate filter, the mammalian kidney.
All of these extreme adaptations we've been talking about, they build perfectly into our own bodies. We usually just think of the kidney as the organ that makes urine, but it's honestly so much more than that. The mammalian kidney is a master regulator. It's actively managing your salt and ion levels, your overall osmotic balance, your blood pressure, your body's pH. Oh, and it's handling all that toxic nitrogen excretion we just talked about, and it is doing all of this simultaneously, every single second of your life. Desert mammals might have hyper-efficient versions of these, but yours is still an absolute marvel of engineering.
So the whole process kicks off with something called glomerular filtration. Deep inside your kidney are these tiny twisted balls of capillaries called glomeruli. The secret to how this filter works isn't some complex active transport. It's pure, localized fluid dynamics. It is entirely passive. Your blood pressure literally forces the liquid component of your blood out through these incredibly leaky capillary pores and into a structure called Bowman's capsule. And the really clever part? Specialized cells called podocytes act like a microscopic sieve. They make sure that while the water and waste get pushed out, your vital proteins and red blood cells stay safely locked inside your bloodstream.
But to get this filtration perfectly right requires an astonishing physical balancing act, and it all culminates in the number 10. To get a perfect 10 millimeters of mercury for your net filtration pressure, the kidney has to balance 3 opposing forces. It takes 55 units of glomerular hydrostatic pressure pushing the liquid out, then subtracts 15 units of capsular pressure pushing back, minus another 30 units of colloid osmotic pressure from the proteins trying to hold the water in the blood. 55 minus 15 minus 30, boom, leaves exactly 10. If that number gets even a little too high or too low, the whole system crashes.
Now, to maintain that perfect pressure of 10 all day long, the kidney pulls off its crowning achievement, autoregulation. Your blood pressure changes constantly, right? When you stand up, when you run for a bus, when you get stressed out. Well, through the myogenic mechanism, if blood pressure spikes, the physical stretching literally triggers the smooth muscle in the blood vessels to contract and restrict flow. And even more amazing is the tubuloglomerular mechanism. Specialized cells called the macula densa actually taste the salt flow. If it's moving too fast, they inhibit a chemical called nitric oxide, which automatically constricts the vessels to slow the whole thing down.
So we've gone from pink sea slugs harmonizing with the ocean to desert rats literally manufacturing their own water, right down to the microscopic fluid dynamics happening inside your own body. As we wrap up this explainer, I just want you to take a second and really marvel at this. If your own kidneys are this precisely engineered, balancing competing hydrostatic pressures and automatically dialing blood vessels up and down just to save every crucial drop of water and salt, how much of your survival is happening right now deep inside your cells without you even knowing it? Just keep that in mind the next time you take a simple sip of water.